For Sunday, August 7th, you've found the Georgia gang. And topping our agenda today is Hillary Clinton spurting in the polls. We will have time trials to get you to Turner Field, thanks to the Fox 5 I-team, and lots of new construction in Atlanta bringing lots of jobs. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia gang starts now.
And we are so glad you'll be with us on this Sunday. The news at the top of everyone's mind at the moment, of course, is the presidential race. And we will dip into it briefly here with what we hope are some local angles that will help you understand the race a little better. But for now, I think all of us would agree that Hillary Clinton has had a very good week. Or should we say, Phil, that Donald Trump had the worst week of a presidential candidate in my memory since Michael Dukakis was photographed riding a tank in a Snoopy hat.
I would say that Trump did have a bad week, but I would say that Hillary Clinton had a bad week too, especially when you think of last Sunday on Chris Wallace on Fox, where she caught a lot of flack, even from liberals. One liberal blogger said, "Stop lying. You don't need to lie against Donald Trump. You could win anyway." So I think that both are going to have to recalibrate their messaging.
Well, spin it that way if you like, but if you look at the polls, now they're all over the place, but clearly Hillary Clinton has regained the lead from Donald Trump if you look at the average of polls.
Yes.
Now, it's not a great lead. One poll has her up 15. That's an outlier, I suspect. The AJC has her up 4 in Georgia.
In Georgia.
In
of
Georgia.
All things,
Yeah.
yes.
Now,
Yeah, she's not
that
counting
one
on Georgia.
will probably adjust, I would think. But I want to just override what Phil said. Yes, Hillary lied, because that's Hillary.
Well, see,
But at the same time, Donald Trump was on a competing network program.
Lying.
Well, no, not lying, just
making stuff up.
He just made stuff up and didn't understand it. He didn't understand that the Soviet Union, for example, is already in Ukraine.
It's unbelievable.
Well, there is no Soviet Union. You mean
Russia. Yeah, I mean, he's saying good things about his friend Vladimir Putin, but doesn't realize that he's already in the Ukraine. And then, on the other matter, we're talking the $400 million cash, and somehow Donald Trump, the only person in America who has actually seen the video of that transfer, he's the only one. And then he says to his audience, "You all saw it. No, nice plane. You all saw it. No, actually, we didn't."
He finally cleaned it up on Friday.
Then I want to go back to that.
Well, I'm just going to disagree with you that she was lying. Now, the FBI director said that she told him the truth, and she said that she told him the truth, but
not the public.
Well,
but the question should have been, did she lie to the public?
Well, he didn't answer that question, and that wasn't what she was saying.
He said she didn't lie to him, but
it was on the classified information.
She lied to the public.
Well, the thing is, it wasn't marked classified at the time.
Well, that's not what the FBI director said, Alexis.
Well, she didn't see the marking, and so besides
but
that,
the point is
that
they both have to recalibrate their messaging.
Well,
I would say.
think both of them need to go away for a long weekend. and
start over
now.
again. Well, and maybe Donald Trump could go away for a little bit longer. Apparently, his sons went away for their August vacation to go hunting somewhere out of the country.
Jeff touched on something that I think is really important, and we're just beginning to hear the start of it. And that's the $400 million in cash the Obama administration sent to Iran. I was shocked when I read the story. I always understood there was a payoff, but I didn't understand, and I don't think the public did, that the government sent $400 million in cash to Tehran.
Well,
to ransom our sailors.
That's not true.
It's ransom.
It was not ransom.
It wasn't ransom at all. The money was.
It belonged to Iran.
There was a dispute before the International Tribunal over these funds, these assets that had been frozen back in the 1970s. Iran, for the first time, because of the nuclear missile negotiations, was in negotiations and diplomatic talks with the United States. They raised this issue. It looked clearly like it was going to be well over $1 billion if the International Tribunal ruled against the United States. We don't have any relations with them. We don't have any banking relations with them, so we couldn't have wired money or sent a check.
Well,
and so, it went over in Swiss francs and euros.
Jeff, what you're ignoring is this was money that was supposedly owed to the old regime of the Shah. We were under no obligation to, number one, give that. Number two, we are owed reparations by this tyrannical Muslim regime in Iran, the world's #1 terrorist state. Number three,
Reparations?
What was it? Yes, because of they seized our property, they took prisoners, the families needed compensation. The liberals don't tell you that part of it.
Let me.
So, but it was
a part of.
Even the Iranian American who was released said we were waiting on the plane for the cash, and then they released us.
Yeah, and the reason they had to do the euros and the francs, by the way, was Congress passed a law saying U.S. currency cannot be paid to Iran. So the Obama administration went to the central banks in Europe and got our cash switched into euros
Hillary
and francs.
and Obama are doing everything they can to make Iran a superpower.
All right.
No, they're not. They're
Yes,
doing
they are.
everything they can to prevent them
In
from having
Georgia.
nuclear weapons, and they have gotten them to dismantle and
Georgia this
destroy
week,
some of
Newt
that
Gingrich,
material.
Used a funny choice. He said that help me with this, Phil.
Well, it was an intervention.
He said that Hillary and Donald Trump had to make themselves the least unacceptable candidate.
Well, I think that's probably on the money because, as we've been discussing, it's a 50-state race. In the polling, I think, and you hear
There's
Nate Silver and
another
others.
Donald Trump charge that it's going to be rigged.
Well, you know, well, look at what the DNC did. I tell you what, that you're not
The
talking
DNC
about. They
well,
rigged it against Bernie Sanders.
But how are we going to rig a national election? Tell me that.
Well, I tell you what, by getting rid of voter ID laws.
That's how you do it.
That's how you do
Oh,
it.
for goodness sake.
But my
No, that's
point,
how you rigged it in the first
That's
place.
how they rig. Yes, thank you.
to the bigger point, I don't think the polls mean anything right now for both candidates. I think the first debate, Dick, will really tell a story, and then we'll have to start looking at the 50-state polling.
Now,
Well,
also
if he
in Georgia-
contrives and make stuff up the way he's been doing thus far, those debates are going to go pretty well for her.
Well, Hillary is not gonna- Hillary
because
is so
this guy lives in
scripted.
another Netherland. I mean,
No,
he
she's so
is saying
studied.
things to audiences that have no basis
Well,
in reality
that's a
at
total,
all.
That's a total exaggeration.
And it's just
All right,
a
let me-
complete
let me-
on the
we gotta
economy.
get out.
Trump can win on the economy, and that's what scares you.
We
Trump
got-
isn't going to win
No.
on a thing.
We got to get
Right.
out. I just want to add that my old friend Bauke View, who fled tyranny in Vietnam and has been a very active Republican, was named to the Electoral College for Georgia. And this week, on principle, he said, I can't support Donald Trump. Some negotiations went on, and he resigned his position as an elector.
He did the principled thing. You know, we're seeing this more and more with Republicans pulling back and saying, I can't support this guy. He doesn't have the character. He doesn't have the temperament. He doesn't have the judgment. He doesn't have the experience
Or the
to be
knowledge.
president of the United States. As the president said, he is unfit for this office. He did not say that about Mitt Romney. He did not say
All right,
that
we gotta
about
get out.
John
Well,
McCain. But clearly this guy is unfit
the usual
for the
left-wing
office.
talking points. How about all the Democrats that are supporting
The fact of the matter
Johnny
is, I'm talking
Isaacson?
about Republicans like that,
He has more
like the one you
experience
just
than Barack Obama.
The one that you
More
oh my
experience
God.
than Barack Obama
Obama's
ever
got.
had.
Let me say
We gotta
this
get
about,
out.
let
We
me
gotta
say
get
this
out.
about
Please,
Mr. Vu. He's a nice man, but either party don't accept being a member of the Electoral College if you're not going to go with the popular vote
I
of
don't
the
think
state.
he saw what was coming. I don't know.
I don't either. And as a principled Republican, I respect his
Well,
decision.
don't accept being an elector. is all I'm
We got to
saying.
get out. We got to get
Well,
out. When
that's
we
what
come
he
back,
did. He said,
when we come back, we'll dial back the temperature a little bit because we owe one to Dale Russell and Randy Travis of the I-Team. They made my point about getting to the SunTrust Park, the new Brave Stadium. Stay with us. Time trials.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Now, the Braves made an announcement this week that most times of the year would probably go unnoticed, but really, when the Braves said that all the games at Turner Field next year, the first season in, not Turner Field, in SunTrust Park, the new stadium in Cobb County, will begin at 7:30. First pitch at 7:30. Bull of a time, 7:30. And that assumes that traffic will have cleared out.
Have you ever been over there at 7:30?
Yes, I have.
That's a mighty big assumption, right?
But it will be less traffic. Anyway, let's give all credit to the I-Team.
Okay.
Dale Russell first decided to take public transit with a retired editor from Fox 5 from Candler Park to SunTrust. Well, it was pretty arduous. A couple of trains, then a Cobb bus, then quite a long walk from the bus stop to the stadium, which they'll fix next year. At any rate, it took Dale and his colleague 90 minutes from Candler Park in the center of Atlanta up to SunTrust Park. But then Dale and Randy Travis time trialed. They left Johns Creek from the same place at the same time. Randy Travis drove to Ted Turner downtown to a Braves game.
Yep.
And Dale took his car south and west to SunTrust Park. And Alexis, it was a lot easier
like
to
20
get to
minutes.
SunTrust Park.
But what time of day was it? That was what he didn't.
It was because
report.
Randy was trying to get to the ballpark
It
to
was 6
start
o'clock.
the game.
6 o'clock in the evening.
He was trying to get to a 7 o'clock game at Turner Field.
Right.
7 o'clock, I think I'm right.
But
yeah.
I think he said he got there 15 minutes before start time, so it must have, I don't know.
Yeah, he was afraid he wasn't going to
Took
make first
45
pitch,
minutes,
but he
right.
did.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, the bottom line
Is it-
was that the car from Johns Creek to Cobb County was 42 minutes. From Johns Creek to Ted Turner Field was 73 minutes. My argument and the Braves' argument is that the new stadium has 14 entry points for commuters, and Turner Field only has 3, Phil.
Well, that's right, and you know, we all visited there and we heard the plan, but here's the bigger picture, in my opinion. I think that, yes, the 7:30 will help, but Jeff's right. I mean, if you've been down there, it'll help a little bit. Here's what's going to happen. The Braves also said last week, well, this is only phase 1 of a 3-phase transportation plan. Well, what does that mean? I was talking to some Sandy Springs officials. They want to know now what the traffic plan is for
Right.
overall planning and for law enforcement and traffic
All
flow.
of
So
that.
they need to tell us a lot more, Jeff.
I know they got a lot of fans in Johns Creek. I know they do. That's why they moved to Cobb County. But
Well, even
they might have some in Chattahoochee Hills, maybe 1 or 2. And it'd be a lot harder for them, I think, to get up there than somebody in Johns Creek. It just depends on where you're coming from.
right. And the other thing, on the time trial that they did, there was no traffic going to SunTrust Park for the ball game.
That's
but
right.
there was
And they
lots
said
of
that.
traffic going down to
Well,
Ted Turner
that's right,
Field.
Alexis. In fact,
So, I
they
don't
also
know.
said, the Fox 5 duo said that they're going to have more buses and that Cobb County is planning on more buses for game days.
Well, they are, and they'll change those routes.
Yeah.
And then,
Right.
of course, they did point out
so there
is
will be route changes.
There'll
Yeah.
be route changes.
Yeah.
And there is a circulator bus.
Right.
You can go, if you're coming from the south part of the metro,
So,
you can do
to
it
be
by mass
objective,
transit.
that was a little unfair because they hadn't put everything in for a
Everything's
game
not in
day.
But
place yet.
they qualified that. All right, now, on the economic front, lots of announcements this week. NCR was a very confused company. You recall they moved their headquarters to Gwinnett County a few years ago, Fortune 500 company. And I don't know what was in the water in Gwinnett. They didn't like it, so they moved to Midtown to be closer to recruiting students at Georgia Tech. And they're talking about another Midtown tower now with 1,500
Another
jobs.
1,500.
Yeah, they must like it there. And you're going to see more of that, people moving in town because that's where the talent is, and
And
that's
then-
where people want to live.
Then an Irish company called Vox Pro, which is call center solutions and things for companies, is going to Athens, Clark County, Phil, where they want to draw on the University of Georgia graduates.
That's right. And again,
That's 500 jobs.
Hats off to Governor Deal and Economic Commissioner Chris Carr and the team for really pushing this. And you know, I will say this though, we've got in Sandy Springs just as many Fortune 500 companies now as they do in the city of Atlanta. So both are booming.
Well, and I think this is all portends very good for the November elections too, that the economy is booming. And
But remember,
so
it's
forget
state
about
by
you,
state.
Donald Trump.
A lot of states don't have what we have. You've got to remember
Yeah,
that.
Pennsylvania would kill for what we announced
The
just
rust,
this week.
you know, the rust
yeah,
and the
yeah.
Rust Belt will be pivotal in the election. They're not doing as well as we are.
Now, this is sort of minor league, I know, but it's a big thing with me. And that's the backdoor tax increases that we see so much. And the new cities are guilty of it. Both Sandy Springs, Dunwoody, Brookhaven, all of them failed to roll back their millage rates
Village, that's right.
to take into account higher property values. And boy, out of nowhere this week, the Gwinnett County Commission, one of the big ones, said we're rolling back our millage rate to make the property tax revenue coming into the county equal to what, to take that into account.
Do you have to do that, or do you just have to report
Well, no, you just
whether or
have
not
to
you're doing
advertise
right,
it.
You have to advertise it.
You
Right.
just have to advertise
Right.
it. And they're all getting away with it. But here was Gwinnett, they did the right thing and rolled it back. Now,
Right.
also this week in the city of Atlanta, President Obama opened the non-existent federal purse and granted $10 million to the city to beautify Martin Luther King Drive. I always thought that local road improvements were city taxpayers' responsibilities. I resent having to pay to restore the decay on Martin Luther King Drive. That's ridiculous. Why should my tax dollars go for that, Jeff?
Because they always have, and because that's what we
That's no
do.
reason
We
to do
invest, we invest in our cities and in our infrastructure. We have every reason nationally to do so as a nation, to invest in our cities and the city's infrastructure, and that's a modest investment of $10 million.
Absolutely. And I recuse myself from the discussion because I live on Martin Luther King
I know you do.
Drive.
I know you
That's
do.
the only reason why you should not recuse yourself.
And so I'm
But Phil,
grateful
this is how the government morass gets to where it is.
Well, this is
Streetcars and Martin Luther King Drive.
This is the complete federal overreach where it is true that we need to have infrastructure done, but it's priorities, and this is not
No,
a
it's
high
the
priority.
city's job to do
Well,
that.
it is, but I think we've lost that battle because
And maybe with the
I'll
state.
bet you that Arthur
Yeah.
Blank will disagree with you on that too, because Martin Luther King leads right into his stadium.
You know, everybody's going to disagree with you over there on the west side where they're trying to make those kinds of
Right.
improvements. I mean, this is huge. You got a $1.5 billion investment going on over there. You get billionaires trying to rebuild neighborhoods, English Avenue, and you're saying
Dick's
that
point is we don't
federal
have the
government
money.
shouldn't
That's his
participate?
point. We
Yeah,
don't
no,
have the
no,
money.
no.
I know.
Whose money is it? We
It's
don't
your
have it.
money. It's your money. It's our money. It's money that we send to Washington that's coming back to Georgia. That's a good thing.
All right,
Yeah.
we've got to get out of here. When we come back, we're going to talk about another item in the city briefly, and then some more politics. We'll talk about Councilman Kwanzaa Hall, who a really good guy, named after a holiday, and he wants to do away with the broken windows theory of policing. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
We'll put this item in the general category of philosophy. As we mentioned with Martin Luther King Drive, that's a philosophy of spending and government operations. Now comes Atlanta City Councilman Kwanzaa Hall, who wants to change the modern philosophy of policing, which comes out of New York City, and that's called the broken window theory, where you have minor crimes and people are caught and punished for them. And the idea, Phil, is to stop larger crimes from happening.
That's right, and New York City is a good example, along with several other cities where the crime rates went down in the 90s and on into this decade. And I was glad that Atlanta Police Chief George Turner actually pushed back somewhat against Kwanzaa Hall and said, you know, there is some merit to this broken windows policing because it's a quality of life issue. And he pointed out, I don't care if you're black or white or whoever you are, you want to have a quality of life.
The neighbors want it.
The neighbors, that's right. And I think the chief is right and Kwanzaa Hall is wrong.
Well, I know what Kwanzaa Hall is getting at, though. I think he wants to stop criminal records for young kids. I mean, there's a fine line here.
Yes.
But I will come down with you, Phil, on the side of broken windows theory. I think that is proven to get results. And I think it'd be interesting because Kwanzaa Hall is, after all, running for mayor, along with a huge field. And this is just another step in that debate, I think.
I don't think he's officially announced, but he intends to run for mayor. And the fact of the matter is, you know, there is some credence to that. I think that we all want to make sure that, you know, the whole broken windows theory was that a broken window would lead to further blight. And so it's sort of an analogy for crimes because minor crimes could lead to more major crimes. But when you have as many African-American men locked up in the criminal justice system as we do over very minor, non-violent offenses, I think that he's got a legitimate point. And everybody's looking at this, including our conservative Republican governor, who has enacted some criminal justice reforms so that we can begin to undo some of that 3 strikes and you're out stuff that we were
Yeah,
Well,
doing.
it has nothing, yeah,
Well,
but
the other
when we're
point-
talking violent crime, the point of broken windows is we don't want these criminals, petty criminals, graduating to be violent
Well, and
criminals.
the other point is that there has been kind of this wave of incidents across the country that have escalated with police interactions with so-called, you know, broken window issues, like selling cigarettes on the street or pulling over a traffic offense, and then the woman ends up dead. So I think that's a
people
concern
can have a
too.
case-by-case basis.
It's a concern.
So, but the point is, in many of these cities like New York, violent crime has gone down because of this
violent
policing.
crime has gone down everywhere.
Let me get
Well,
back
it's
to politics.
rising, no.
This will be a good, fun debate as we see the mayor's race unfold next year. Let me turn back to politics. I was struck by the fact that David Scott, the congressman from Georgia 13, am I right? Mm-hmm. The Pascual Perez district, David Scott is a Democrat, and he endorsed Johnny Isakson in no uncertain terms. He says, my buddy, he's my partner. And then we learn that Johnny Isakson also has received campaign contributions from Roy Barnes, the governor, and Sam Nunn, the former senator. Yet there's polling data, Phil, that shows Jim Barksdale, the unknown Democrat, within, what, 4 or 5 points of Johnny Isakson?
I saw that. I saw some other polls that were a little higher. I think, you know, just like there's kind of 2 Republican parties, there's 2 Democrat parties, and this kind of shows it, because Barksdale is very far left. He's a socialist. He loves Bernie Sanders, and when people start to know him, there's a lot of pro-business Democrats in this state that are shying away from Barksdale.
Yeah, I don't think that those 3 that you mentioned are anti-Barksdale. I think they're pro-Johnny. They know him. They've worked with him for decades. They like him. They find that he is an effective legislator and somebody who can easily cross the aisle and does so for the benefit of the citizens of Georgia. And we've seen this all along with Johnny over his decades of service in Georgia, that there are these folks. But the thing is, can Republicans, when they see that they have a demagogue as their standard bearer, make the same decision and cross over? That's the question. Can they do like David Scott?
So do the Republicans want to vote for a corrupt liar or someone you don't fully agree with?
Let's keep that focus on Congress
That's
for a
not
moment.
the choice. I think someone you don't fully agree with would be Hillary Clinton. Not the corrupt liar would be Donald Trump.
Another congressman this week, we're in a hurry here, but Hank Johnson from the 4th, which is mostly DeKalb and Rockdale counties, continued his apology tour, meeting with major Jewish groups and the Jewish Times to say that he didn't really mean that Jewish settlers in Palestine were termites.
No, he didn't.
It was just an analogy about how the settlements complicate peace talks over there.
Well, the other question is, what is he doing with this virulently anti-Israel group? He was there at this group fawning over them, and it's a boycott Israel group.
It is. It's a boycott Israel.
So what was he doing
group.
there?
Why did he show up?
Because it was a forum. They weren't sponsors of the forum.
He was
a
supporting
forum.
them.
He was at their forum, yeah.
Yeah, he was
So
supporting
trying to
them.
say something nice.
So, and that's why, rightly so, that Jewish leaders were upset. And of course, you know, Hank has a very undistinguished career. Anyhow, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets.
I mean, you know,
Hank is good. You're not defending his termite.
Well, no, I wouldn't defend the termite thing, and I think that he's apologizing for it. But he's got some of the best constituent services that you'll see anywhere in Georgia.
We got to get out.
Right. He delivers.
He's got a little empire going. His wife's on the DeKalb County Commission. That's good. Everything's good. Everything's on the government payroll. Nobody works for a living. This is a good Democratic plan.
No,
all right, when we come back, winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And before we crown and dethrone those winners and losers, let's squeeze one more item in. And it's kind of in the category of inside baseball, but Mark Daylor resigned or was forced out as the executive director of the Judicial Qualifications Commission. That's a fight that doesn't seem to end over there.
Well, that's right. And this panel is overseeing, it's a watchdog over the judges, and it had a very good reputation over the last decade or so. Dozens of judges, it's shocking actually, were forced out because of corruption and malfeasance and abuse of office. The panel's gone downhill, though, very quickly. It was Daylor and Lester Tate, who was forced out as chairman of the panel earlier. They were playing favorites, and the governor and a lot of people, from what I hear, said we got to turn this around, reform it. You know, there was legislation to reconstitute and reform the panel. That'll be on the ballot in November, so we need to vote yes.
All right, I'll come back to you. Alexis, what do you have?
Okay, I want to celebrate C.T. Vivian. He had a surprise birthday party this past week for his 92nd birthday. And Andy Young got him organized and took him out, and they went to see Joe Lowry, and then he brought him home, and I was privileged to be in a group there waiting for him to yell, "Surprise, happy birthday." And then the next thing I want to do is congratulate the Center for Civil and Human Rights. It has been designated a voting precinct. They moved the Centennial Elementary School precinct there to the center. So, and the World of Coca-Cola is offering free parking for people to come in and vote at the center. So it's very fitting.
I got some misgivings, not big ones. Anyway, Jeff, go ahead.
All winners, no losers. Belky Boo, who we mentioned earlier, for resigning on principle instead of voting, casting an electoral college vote for Donald Trump. My other winners, another Trump, Melania Trump. You got to go online if you haven't already and seen the pictures in British GQ. You know, she's sitting there on the 727 of Donald Trump next to the 24-carat gold seatbelt clasp. And so she's a winner. You know, I mean, I think everybody's going to look at that. And, you know, this is a great standard bearer, right, for the White House. That's what we want. That's what you want.
We know you hate Donald Trump. We'll hear this till now in November.
Barack Obama is a winner. Barack Obama's a winner because of these sky-high popularity ratings. I mean, look at those approval ratings.
So you got anything quick? Squeeze it in.
Very quick. There was a marriage. I'm going to make two winners. The Economic Development, Chris Carr, the commissioner, and Joan Kirchner, the top aide to Johnny Isaac. A true power couple.
Strange pastor married them, but yes, they are a true power couple. And hey, let's make this simple. There's less than 30 days to college football.
All right.
September 3rd. It's coming up. With the Braves going the way they are, we need something. All right, 2 weeks to the Olympics. We can enjoy that. See you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.